Hey guys, so today we are here with John from Delectable Mountains. You already know Shadell, and we love her so much.
We do.
We do. Well, you do too,
Yeah,
don't you? You know her.
Yeah, I kind of do, yeah.
So I love Shadell, and we were talking about how she was coming up to visit us, and she happened to mention that her husband, this would be her husband, John. So Shadell mentioned, because they were coming up for a trip, you guys were going to go camping and then come and see us on the way back. And I'm like,
Yes.
oh, I love reading new, not artist is the wrong word. I love reading new authors, even though it is artistry in itself.
Certainly.
And I absolutely, speaking of art, I love the cover.
Yeah, they did a splendid job with it.
It's absolutely gorgeous.
I can't take the credit for that.
But I love the design. Okay, so when she said that you had written a book, I was thinking like ebook or a little pamphlet book, like the kind that I write.
Sure.
And it's not. It's not. It's a very nice thick book, and I'm super excited because it's the only fiction that I'm taking on our trip.
I'm humbled by that.
Well,
I am, though.
I hope so, because I'm really impressed, because a lot of times when you think, like, I'm going to write a book and it's going to be great, and it's, like, self-published and it looks kind of crappy, and this is more kind of like a work of art.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So,
the hope and dream really was to produce something like that. You know, obviously did the Kickstarter and was successful in that, and, you know, obviously there's a cost involved for doing this.
Right.
There's a price you pay for everything.
Yeah.
But, and so it took a little longer, but it's what I wanted. So I didn't know. I did on the assumption this is the one shot I get.
Right.
And so
And it's beautiful.
Thank you. Hopefully the inside's nice too.
Well, and I'm excited because we're moving. I haven't read it yet. Usually I would jump into a book and I would devour it, but I haven't had a chance yet. So initially what Shadell said was that, you know, this is about John's background and his ancestry, and yet it's fiction. And
That's
so
correct.
How does that work?
All right, so what I did was, my grandmother to a dying grave will tell you that Hansel and Gretel was a Bosnian story called Ivca and Marca. Wow. So what I did was, they grew up just like very, very old school word of mouth storytelling, and it would go from village to village, and that's what the Brothers Grimm did. They didn't write a single story. They collected them and then peddled them out to the rest of the world. So I feel a little like them in a sense. So what I did was I took a collection of the stories that I heard about my family growing up in the mountains of Bosnia, living this old school life where they got a well, you know, when my mother was maybe 9, that kind of thing. So they lived in the mountains, lived very rustic existence, same existence that existed for 1,000 years. My family goes back about that time frame. So I collected all those stories, and I'm a history major too, so I was able to put it in context. And I just picked and choose what I wanted. And fiction's great. You get to kind of embellish what you want and change what you need. But I think I was very honest to their lifestyle, the cross of life that they were going through with communism going in. And then my mum told me something very interesting about their existence. Because Bosnia was always ruled by somebody else, they would create these legends and these heroes that didn't exist. And I was able to lean on that as well. So in all of that, I was able to bow tie it into a story that I could be proud of, and then my mum and my grandfather could say, yes, that's okay. And then my children could know where their great-grandfather came from, which was very important to me.
Right. When you were talking earlier, when we were talking just together, you're actually Australian.
I'm Australian.
And so there is kind of a little bit, I know when Shadell was talking about the book that she said, that I was confused when she first started talking about the book, because I'm like, I thought your husband was Australian.
Right.
Where does this other continent come in?
A bunch of generations and continents came to build us. No, my family came in the second wave of basically the first immigration push in Australia. In the 50s, they had a huge immigration push because they were building this huge project in the Snowy Mountains of Australia. And then my family came out in the 70s, early 70s, and then I was born in 76, so I was a first generation Australian. So because we're first generation Australian, English is always the second language in the house.
Okay.
So think Ellis Island 120 years ago. So it was very much like that. My grandparents, even though they loved the country, grateful everything they came with coming to Australia, never spoke English properly. Right. So I remember when Shadell came to first visit Australia, she's like, what's with all these foreign accents and who's going to finally speak English? I'm like, I'm it, baby. Right. So, yeah, I grew up in I didn't speak English till I went to kindergarten. Wow. You know, it was purely Croatian in the house. So from that, you know, it's very funny. I go to Europe, I'm known as an Australian. I stay in Australia, I'm known as a Croat or a Bosnian.
Right.
Because there's a mixture of societies that live in Bosnia. So that was my existence. So yeah, I heard I didn't hear, yes, I read stories about Australia, Man from Snowy River, great poem. And played cricket in the summer, but I did it with Croatian in the background. You know,
Right.
why are you watching that cricket again? So that was my existence. It was different.
Right.
So I always had an affinity to where my family came from. It was the foundation of my existence that I knew I was part of something that was even greater than where we lived.
Right.
And it was a magical place that was so far away because I'd never been there. To this day, I still haven't been to Bosnia, which is kind of crazy. So I feel like little like Jules Verne sitting in my apartment writing stories about places far, far away.
Right.
But I grew up with it. It was part of who I was. It was easy to write.
Yeah.
From that sense.
Well, and I know that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Touch your book.
Yeah, go ahead. It's yours. It's your copy. So you do with it what you will.
So to me, something as masterful as what this appears to be from the outside, I can't wait because I love story. I love fairy tales, but I love more. I prefer it to be based in something that's reality. So I feel like I walked away from it learning something instead of it just being 100% just for my entertainment.
Right.
And so and one thing I've been really attracted towards for my kids is to learn about things like communism in other countries.
Sure.
And even if something is fictionalized, to have an understanding of the framework behind it so that it's a real thing.
Right.
So they walk away feeling like they know a country better and they know their history a little better.
Certainly.
And so it's my favorite kind of book.
Yeah, this book will definitely touch on that. I try not to go crazy on history because I can talk history all day. But the undercurrent is there. And the environment that they live in really do shape and try to dictate the choices that they have to make. So from that undercurrent, you'll definitely get a taste of where they're from. It really is a story about their food and their song and their culture and the new wave of undercurrent that's coming in.
Right.
And then the fables and living in the mountains really do shape you too. So that's an interesting aspect to the story as well.
So another question, is this something that I can read to my children without having to worry that it's going to be too adult for them? Or is this more of like a teenager and older?
I would say it's a young adult fiction. Ivana, my 12-year-old, has devoured it. She was actually through the editing process. I think some of the stuff as a 9-year-old, they'll be like, what is he going on about?
Okay.
But I'd say it's really for 11, 12 up.
Okay.
But there's nothing in there that a 9-year-old would be like, oh my goodness, my ears need to be blocked.
Right.
I hate books that have stuff like that.
Right. It's a shame to ruin good literature with something smutty.
No, not at all. So is there some heavy stuff that happens? Sure. But is there anything that's like oh man, my 9-year-old shouldn't hear that? No. I don't believe in writing stuff like that.
And my favorite thing about that is when I was in college, I had the opportunity to take a literature class that was called History of Southeast Asia.
Okay.
And we didn't have a textbook. What he did is he had you go and get great writers from that continent, from that island, from that wherever it was. And instead of reading something that's been pre-digested, instead you take the literature of the culture and you read that to learn about the culture. And so every single book that I'm taking on our trip, it's about interesting people that happen to live in that space, in that time that you're interested in, so that you get the humanity of it too. And instead of it being filtered through somebody who has a perspective on it when they didn't live there, as far as, you know, somebody in America that just happens to randomly be interested in this. They don't know the culture. They weren't raised in that culture, and so they take it from a very English point of view, and they put it through the English filter rather than having been my grandma, my grandpa. They did these things. These are the stories I knew. You know.
Yeah. The pain and the happiness of where my family comes from, I could say it's borrowed, but it's not because I lived it every day.
Right.
Up until moving to the United States when I was 25, every day I lived, you know, what they went through. So I definitely, obviously there's a bias that exists in every perception, but I try to write a story, warts and all.
Right.
So I'm proud of where we come from, but I know it's history. So warts and all, hopefully the story does a fair summation of all of that, but yet tells a story about a family. Right. But again, I did it as a fiction so they wouldn't come find me.
Right?
Yeah.
There is that. Okay, so everybody, it's Kata's. Am I saying it right?
Yes, ma'am.
Kata's father. We'll try and get a really good close-in of it. And I do think that the book itself is absolutely a work of art. I think it's just so pretty. And it's a heavy, thick book, and I would recommend you guys go check it out. I might put a link up to our Amazon store and put it in our Amazon store so you can find it. Where are other links?
I'm in Amazon. Anywhere you find a book, you'll find me online. So I'm in barnesandnoble.com, Amazon. For those who prefer to do indie, there's a whole bunch of indie places you can find it. I'm on Book Depository, and my own website is katasfather.com, so you can find me there as well.
And you're doing a book signing.
I'm doing book signings all over the place. I've done a ton in Montana. Obviously, that's where we live. I think I'm going to St. Louis in the next couple of weeks. There's a huge Bosnian community there, would you believe? A huge one. So they've got a festival in a few weeks, so I'll be driving. And
is your list of dates that you'll be signing on your website?
No, not at the moment. I need to add that, don't I?
Yeah, you should add it.
Okay, fine. Good idea.
Then if you're in the right area, you could go and meet them, and they're delightful.
Well, at least the boss is. The wife is awesome.
She is awesome.
But just in summary, yes, it's a story about where my family comes from. Yes, it's a whole bunch of it. But it really is about 4 generations of family trying to chase their hopes and dreams. Right. And it's a story of how all of us have a journey in that. And it's all shaped in differently how the good Lord decides. And yet, regardless of whether you're making right or wrong decisions, the wolves of life are going to chase you. Right. And sometimes if it's of our own making, and sometimes of no fault of our own, they're really howling really loudly. Yeah. And that's really what the book is about, and the price we have to pay for pursuing those dreams. And we all have prices we have to pay, and whether they're worthy or not, time will tell, right? Right, exactly. And I think... You guys know nothing about that, right? None at all. You just described our life in this short little nutshell that we're in the moment. You can thank Shadell for that, because she helped, because I don't know how to summarize. I thought that was beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. This is going to be hilarious. I am so excited. I love it when things are hilarious. Okay, what's your family? They didn't homestead. What would you call what they were doing? They did do well. See, it was village collective homesteading. So one person would watch the grapes. They would have cows. They would do this. They would basically live together. Because it's kind of like a Croatian homestead heritage. That's correct. What is with that? What is that like? It's to keep the spirits away. What is this? Where did I put the book? If you don't want me to snort, you have to stop being so funny. Sorry, your feet. Can I have pen is mighty than the sword? Do you dog ear books as well? Do I need to get you a bookmark? I do dog ear, but I do have a bookmark. It's your book. If you dog ear it, that's fine. As long as you're reading it, I guess I can't complain. Okay, so how do things look? Should I go put ridiculous. You look ridiculous. What is this? There? Almost, yeah. You just have to make sure you're covering his arm when you sit down because he's got blue coming out of the arm. Do I need to roll up? No. Just don't move. Just hold still, little puppet. I'm a boy. Do I need to put on more blush so that I show up next to him? I'm a boy. That be... Wait, here, come in the viewfinder. No, you're good. Okay, so now... Yes. And I think I'm not going to do... Oh, now I'm like... I don't want to look unprofessional in this. It's one thing to be unprofessional in Braid Girls. It's another thing to be unprofessional for a book review. Do you know what I mean? But I'm just like... Your hair's going to go like this? I look like an advertisement for the National Park Service at this moment. I know. Here. Well, I was going to change my shirt into something more flannel to fit in, but it didn't happen because y'all captured me. I don't know if any of the girls have eaten breakfast. Ours did. Did she eat breakfast? I don't know. I'll go find out. Because I never saw him wander into the kitchen at all. To eat anything. I'll go find out.